Olá,
Isto é provavelmente altamente esquisito para todos, para a primeira aula ah, presencial. Pelo menos o semestre passado teve a vantagem de ainda termos tido umas semanas de aulas presenciais e deu para nos conhecermos. Este semestre é mais complicado. Ok, como isto é uma cadeira de segundo ciclo da Faculdade de Ciências e como vejo alguns nomes que me fazem desconfiar, vou fazer esta pergunta. Uh, is there anyone in the room that does not speak Portuguese? Okay, we have at least one student who doesn't speak Portuguese. Hi, Robert. Which means that per the Faculty of Sciences, okay, we have two students, Jan Lucas, also doesn't speak Portuguese, which means that according to the rules that we use at the Faculty of Sciences, the official language for this course is now English. Okay, so this means that all materials will be provided in English, which is, well, they are already all prepared in English because this is what usually happens. Also, classes will be in English. And it does not mean that your work will have to be done in English. Of course, I expect if you are one of the non-Portuguese speakers, that your works will be in English. I probably don't speak your mother language, but everyone else can deliver their essays, assignments, stuff that we'll be talking today in Portuguese. Okay, that's the rules of the game from now on. Okay, so we are already 39 participants in this meeting, and I was expecting the limit to be 43. I have 43 students enrolled at the moment or wishing to enroll, so almost everyone is here, which is great. Probably one of the advantages of this being an online class instead of an on-site class. Okay, so today's class, it's going to be shorter than the remaining classes. It's going to be mostly about introduction, motivation for the topics that we will be addressing during the rest of the semester. And next week we start on our more regular rhythm. Okay, I will be recording all classes also. All classes will be I haven't started recording this one. I will warn you when I start recording. But all classes, or at least most of the classes, probably all classes, will be mixed in the sense that you will be able to attend the class in person if you want to. According to the rules, if you have an even number, you will be attending next week class. If you have an odd number, you should be attending this week class in person. That's the way that the school is trying to minimize the numbers in the same room at the same time. So half of you should attend in person in 1 week, the other half in the next week. Of course, even if it's your week to attend in person, you are not required to do so, since half of the students will not be in the room. Every class will be broadcast. So even if it's your week of being in the class, you can decide not to go and attend via Zoom or Teams when I get that running. And before we starting, I'll then start sharing my screen and recording. Let me also just introduce myself. Usually I can see everyone's face, not not on this occasion, so it's not easy for me to know if I know almost every one of you and if almost every one of you know me. So probably some of you have already had me as teacher in the previous year or a couple of years ago. But for those who haven't, my name is Carlos Duarte. I've been here at the Faculty of Sciences. Well, I'm not at the Faculty of Sciences at the moment, but I've been working at the Faculty of Science, or I've joined the Faculty of Science in 2000, so 20 years ago, a long time ago. I've joined this school when I finished my master's and when I was starting my PhD. So I did my PhD here in this school, and I've started teaching around that time also. I finished my PhD in 2008, so 12 years ago. And I did a PhD. I'm telling part of this history because it's also relevant then for what we're going to be talking about in this class. But I did my PhD on adaptive systems at the time where artificial intelligence was not as hype as it is today. But when I started working on adaptive systems, I didn't expect well, I hadn't decided in which domain I would test my proposal for adaptations. And it happened that the domain where I tested this was on digital talking books. So basically audio books as they have been become known. So that means that that was the first time that I worked with blind people. So audiobooks, at least at the time, were mainly consumed by blind or people with different visual impairments. So that was the first time that I worked with blind people. And I guess it caused such an impression on me that from then on, almost every research project that I've entered meant that I was working with someone with some type of disability. So I've worked with blind, I've worked with children with autism, with autism. I've worked with older people, and they tend to have a lot of disabilities. We will all get them as we age. So basically, accessibility to information systems and every kind of digital devices has played a major role in what I've been doing so far. So this means that it also has a major role on what I'm teaching. So we're going to talk for the rest of the semester about user experience, but we are going to address user experience for everyone. Okay, not just for what is a regular person, if there's anything as a regular person, but even if you don't have any disability, there are times that you do have a temporary disability. If you are outside, there's a lot of sun, and you look at your mobile phone screen, it's really harder to see than when you are inside with a controlled lighting. So you have a visual impairment temporarily there. If you are holding two bags in your hands, you can't use your smartphone as you usually do. So you have a temporary disability, and it can be very temporary. As soon as you drop one of your bags, you get your arm and your hand back. But if you break your arm, it takes longer for you to get everything that you used to. So this is really important. It's not just for disabled people. Everyone benefits from uh, what we do when we design stuff that's accessible. Okay, there are a lot of examples. We will talk about them in a couple of weeks, I guess, of technologies that we don't nowadays connect with some kind of disability, but that were created exactly for people that were disabled in any kind of sense of fashion. Okay, um, so I do work a lot on projects related with disability. Lately, I've been a lot on the news for the department and for the whole school. So you might have seen one interview with me on the school's newsletter. You might have seen some messages about my projects on the department newsletter. So that was just some coincidence. I've started some projects quite at the same time. So, but if you do have interest in this line of work, or if you gain interest during the semester, do talk to me again at the end. I usually have several projects for my for your master thesis next year that address this domain, and I would say that I must be doing something good because more and more students are doing master thesis on this topic. So perhaps we will be working next year, or I'll be working with some of you next year, but you have a full year to think about it, okay? Uh, does anyone want to make any comment, has any question before we start the user experience class? Okay, guess not. So I'll start recording the class after I start sharing my screen. So be warned, from now on, you're also recorded. Okay, you should be seeing my screen at the, okay. And you're now being recorded also, okay? So as I was mentioning, and this is, I estimate about an hour tops that will take for this class. And I've introduced myself, so just some more details about how you can get in touch with me. Okay, as you're aware, I'm the single faculty for this class. My office when I'm at the sciences school, it's 6322. Uh, I I guess that I don't spend a lot of time there nowadays, but you can reach me through my email if you need it. Also, and we'll talk about this a bit later, about Microsoft Teams, you will be able to reach me there when we manage to get that up and running. So classes are all on Monday. Today we only have the theoretical class and it won't take that long. So this is already the official schedule. Classes finishing 15 minutes before the scheduled time because we are in an even numbered room. That applies also to the practical classes. And my office hours, basically, I, I chose not to define an office hour because I really don't know how long I will be at my office, and probably you won't be at the school as frequently as you were if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic. So basically, if you need to talk to me, just send me an email or schedule some time with me on Teams. Okay. So, uh, plan for today. What's our agenda for today? And of course, if anytime, feel free to interrupt me, ask any questions, drop a line on Zoom's chat, or just uh, unmute yourself and speak. Okay, so feel free to interrupt me at any time. So the agenda for today is just going through why is this course offered to you? Why is it important? What's the motivation for talking about user experience? And then at the end, just a little bit about administrative stuff, where you will be able to find anything related to this discipline, and start talking about a bit of the project and all the assignments and grading for this course. Okay, so once again, just feel free to interrupt me at any time. So if you enrolled in this course, probably you want to know, probably you are interested in designing interactive systems. Uh, Probably you want to improve your skills about designing interactive systems in a way that the users for your interactive systems really enjoy their experience. So let's start with what is user experience. And if any of you have Netflix and you have seen the High Score show that's been airing since last month, I guess. It's interesting because the first thing that is mentioned on the first episode of that show, it's basically user experience. So I did really a small 12 seconds clip of what of how that starts, and basically, well, apparently I missed the audio, but this is a game designer just introducing and saying that as a game designer, it's not about what's in the code. It's not even about the design of the game. What everything's about, it's what's in the head of the player. Okay. And when I saw this, okay, this is user experience. It's not about your design. It's about what other people's experience when they use your design. Uh, so if you have good experiences, if you enjoy chocolate, this slide probably gives you a good user experience. If you don't, well, I'm sorry, but I can't really control your user experience because I'm not able to control you. Okay, I'm able to control a design, but I'm not able to control the user. Okay, so this is what's challenging about user experience. And I'm really sorry to let you know that we are not in this course be addressing how to make great chocolate. I would love to, but we'll mostly be talking about software systems, okay? And so software systems, the experience with software systems is probably not as good as with chocolate. And this is the kind of stuff that you find in a lot of software licenses. Okay, this software is provided without warranty of any kind. The manufacturer does not warrant that the functions contained in the software will meet your requirements, or that the operation of the software will be uninterrupted or error-free, or that defects in the software will be corrected. Okay, it's amazing. And we do use this stuff. Have you noticed? Uh, Imagine, would you buy a car if it came with this kind of license? No one would buy a car. No one would even buy a TV set. So why do we buy software like this? And I'm not just talking about open source software, free software, okay? We're buying software that has this in their licenses. So basically, we're saying that we're okay with buying stuff that might not work. And that's very strange. And hopefully it will improve and consumers will start be more demanding about what they get from software. But how the software gets away with it? It's basically uh, uh, something that we can, it's an effect we can call as a dancing bear. Okay. So if you see a bear dancing, it's great. It's amazing. A bear dancing, wow. But if you if you consider the ability of a bear to dance, it's really poor. It's a bear. It's not a good dancer. Okay, but it's a bear dancing. Wow, whatever. I don't mind. So you can software gets away with it doing things so badly. Why? Because they have these amazing features that no one else has. And so they can provide a bad experience because they offer something unique to you. Okay. So that's why software gets away with it, but it only gets away with it until a better dancer comes along. So iPhone was really an amazing example of this. So you had a lot of mobile phones that were crap from a user experience perspective, but they got away with it. There was nothing better, so they were the better bears dancing. Then iPhone came and changed everything because it danced better than the other bears. Uh, so that's why you shouldn't take your customers for granted. You should always strive to provide them what is the best user experience that you can provide them. Because for your customers, for the users of your software, for the users of your interactive systems, the interaction experience is the system. Okay. If your users can't find that feature that makes your system stand out from the rest, it doesn't exist. Okay. So it's the interaction that they have with the system that is the system for your users, not what you built into the system. Okay, if I can't find a feature, I won't use it. I won't know that it's even there. So that's not the system. That's why you get in the past some stuff like redesigning the interaction experience. What I'm showing to you now, it's two different ways that Microsoft had to present the same set of features, basically, to their users. So they redesigned their Microsoft Office ribbon, where they grouped all the features. The features are the same. So from that perspective, it's the same system. But the way they are presented, hopefully, improves the user experience. Okay, I remember clearly that time where Microsoft introduced this change, almost everyone was against it. But that's different because we as humans tend to resist change. We are much more comfortable with what we already know. So every time some change is pushed, we fight back. So basically, this is one example of how a design how the way you design your product, your interface, can change the user experience for your users. But it's important to notice that it's not just about design. Okay, having a great design, a pretty design, if you want, doesn't make it a better user experience. Okay, so here I have an example or I have examples of three products. Okay, with I would say two of them for most people are probably pleasing. They have a pleasing design. On the top left, you have a coffee pot. It is called the coffee pot for masochists. Okay, so I think it's clear why when you try to power the coffee, you'll probably burn yourself. So, but it's great looking. It's it's probably not very useful. It's definitely not usable. Then you have also a pleasing looking clock. It's even called the aesthetically pleasing clock without numbers. So it doesn't make your life easier to know the time. It probably will take you longer to find out what time is it with this kind of clock. But this, both the coffee pot and the clock, they are for sale. So people buy this stuff. And of course, then we have universal remote controls. They are notorious for having a, well, not really pleasing design. I don't want to call them ugly, but they are also not known for their great usability. They allow doing lots of stuff, but probably people only use a really small subset of the features they offer. Okay, that's the same with Microsoft Office, by the way. Most people don't even know what they can do with Microsoft Office. So design is not all, it's not the end. I'm not a designer, so and I'm still teaching a course on user experience. So definitely this is not about design. Okay, but design is important. I'm going to show you now two examples of basically the same of two sites which have the same goal. They will allow their users to book flights. Okay, this might be a bit dated. I think these screenshots have 3 or 4 years, but they both allow you to book flights. I've already went through the part where I specified my departure and arrival airports, my dates. So now this is the list of flights that meet those criteria. And this is Kayak, one of the websites, and it shows you a traditional way to present this, so just a list of flights. Then there's Hipmunk, which shows you basically the same information in a totally different way. Okay, it's much more visual the way they present. You get this perception, this visual perception on which part of the day the flight happens. They also do a great job of showing you if the flight has a stop. They even show you where it stops, so that the second and the fourth flight, for instance, they stop at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. But the information is basically the same. If I go back to Kayak, we'll also be able to find here flights that have stops and where do they stop. If you look at the first one, it has 2 stops, and the flight back has 1 stop. It's basically the same information. It's presented differently. And this is another example of how you can't really control for user experience, because I'm usually at this, when I present this in this class, I ask students, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer Kayak? Do you prefer Hipmunk? I guess today it's going to be a bit harder to get all that feedback. But what I've learned from past years is that while Hipmunk is definitely the one that I favor, I do prefer that kind of presentation, it's not the one that many people prefer. It's usually 50-50. perhaps half of the students in class prefer Kayak's way of presenting this information, while the other half prefers Hipmunk's way of presenting. So once again, it's another example of how you don't really control the user experience. Because there are some stuff that you can do that really tends to improve the way that your users feel towards your project. Some examples of this magnificent feature that Google introduced for Gmail. So Gmail scans your email message, and if it finds the attachment or something related to attachment word in your message, and you forget to attach it, to attach the attachment, then yeah, great. It's great to have this warning. So have you forgot your attachment? Do you really want to send your message without the attachment? It's great. This has saved me to send a second email saying now with the attachment a lot of times. Other kinds of details. These are basically details, but it's this whole set of details that makes your design. So this is a screenshot from MailChimp. MailChimp, for those of you who don't know, it's basically a mailer program. It's something that you can use to send bulk email. And here you're telling MailChimp on which days of the week do you want an email to be sent, and you might have picked all days of the week, and then you just check out Sunday and Saturday, and it changes that label to weekdays instead of having it as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So it just uses weekdays. Google search for photos, the Google Images. If you drag a photo to that page on your web browser, then the input field, the search input field changes so that you can drop the image there and allows you to search by images. Okay, and it does this automatically, recognizes that you are dragging a photo there. Other types of details. So the Dropbox installation, they adapt to the browser that you are seeing those instructions. Okay, if I'm looking at the installations, the download instructions for Dropbox on Safari, I get that that the first step. I have a different screenshot and a different text than what I get if I'm using Chrome. Okay, so it adapts to the platform that's being used to check for the information. Twitter, it tries to prevent you, or it really prevents you to tweet the same content in succession. So it shows you a message saying, okay, you already tweeted that, so you don't want to tweet it again. Of course, you can tweet it again later on, but it prevents you from doing it in succession. Another example, Spotify. When you are canceling your Spotify subscription, it offers you a goodbye playlist. Okay, even if you don't remain with Spotify, you still have access to this Spotify playlist. So it might even trick you to stay with them for longer. Okay, so some things that might that would definitely improve your experience towards them if that's what they succeed in doing. Slack, and not only Slack, a lot more mobile apps are using this. But when you need to enter a password, and entering complex passwords on mobile devices, it's really a bad user experience. So how do they go around it? They offer to send you a link on an email that you can use to log in to the application instead of having to type your password and making mistakes and having to restart it. So it's much easier to just click on a link on an email. So all of these are examples of what can impact a user experience. So the user experience goes way beyond traditional usability, which is probably what you have learned about so far. So it includes those factors related to usability, but it goes beyond that. Okay. Of course, it also includes factors related to how useful the product is to you, but and this is the changing perspective. How does it impact you emotionally? So do you want to keep using it, or do you just have to use it because you have no alternative? And if that's the case, people will keep using. Uh, they will keep seeing your bear dancing. They will keep using your product. But if there is a competition that is able to provide something that people are that people will prefer to use, that has a more positive emotional impact on them, they will drop your product and start using every other product. Okay, so what we'll be talking about in these classes, how do we go from usability to user experience? Okay, usability is part of user experience, and if you look at usability, we're talking about how easy it is to learn something, how efficient can I become in using something, how easy it is for me to come back to a product that I haven't used in a while and be able to start using it again. How easy or how difficult it is to make an error with that project and with that product, and generally how satisfied I am with using it. And that's basically what usability focus. But there is more than that. There are different contexts that impact the user experience. There's the social context, okay? Even if a product might be very well designed, if you have the pressure from your social peers to use a different device or a different product, you might end up doing so. The product needs to be adapted to your cultural context and to your emotional context. And of course, we've probably been through that all. I do like some product in a day, and in the other day I'm on with a bad mood, and I can't stand it. So even that is dynamic, even that changes, and that's why it's so difficult to design the user experience. So because the user experience is basically the totality of the effects experienced internally by a user. Okay, and so this is the point that I've been trying to get through you. So user experience cannot be designed. Okay, now you might feel cheated. I'm telling you that user experience cannot be designed and you are in a user experience design course. So what the hell are you doing here? Well, we're going to try to talk about what the parts that you can design. Okay, and that's the interaction design. You can design definitely the interface of your product, and you can try and make sure that it has the best usability possible. But then there are some things around your interactive device that you also can control. For instance, branding, marketing, you can control that. Marketing will probably affect the social context and social decisions that people take. But what you are not able to design, what you are not able to control is the user. Okay, and the user experience is the mix of the user with the product that you have designed. Okay. Any questions? Any comments so far? All right. So let's now do something that I feel it's paramount in everything we do. We should define the concepts that we are talking about. So I've been talking about user experience just as something that the user experiences internally when using an interactive product and a non-interactive product also. So let's try and get a more precise definition of this. And I'm not always against Wikipedia, so we'll start with a definition from Wikipedia. Okay, so according to Wikipedia, user experience is a person's emotions and attitudes about using a particular product, system, or service. So definitely, it's not just about interactive products. It's much more broader. Okay, it's also a system probably composed of many products or a service that you use. What does it include? It includes everything. So the practical, the experiential, the effective, the meaningful, the valuable aspects related to human computer interaction. So this is probably the part where you get more about the usability and of the product, but also regarding product ownership. Okay, so owning some products really makes you enjoy more the experience. So you want to own something, perhaps because then you can show to your friends that you own that, or all of those aspects are also related to user experience. Then, of course, it includes also your perceptions about the utility, the ease of use, and the efficiency of the product. These are just typical usability measures. Uh, it also it continues in the definition by stating that user experience may be subjective. Uh, I would even argue that they could drop the maybe. So user experience is subjective. uh, so it's subjective because it's about your individual perception and what you think about a product or a system, and it's dynamic. Okay, it changes. It changes in time because we change with time, but it also changes with the usage context. Okay, so some products have some really great desktop applications, but really poor mobile applications. So the user experience with that product uh, varies when I'm using the product on a desktop or on a mobile. Okay, so all these circumstances influence your experience with the product. They end the first paragraph on the user experience page with the sentence: simplified user experience is about how a user interacts with and experiences a product. So what we've been saying. Now let's look at the first definition of user experience. Okay, so the first person to use to define user experience was Don Norman. If you might have heard of him, if you uh, uh, read something about product interaction design, human computer interaction. He's one of the gurus of this field. He defined this while he was working at Apple in the 90s of the last century. And so, what was Don Norman definition? So, user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its services, and its products. So, even here, it's an even broader scope. It goes to the company itself, okay? And it's probably not foreign for this that he was at Apple, which has this huge company ethos. And so the interaction with the company, with the service provider itself, is part of the user experience. So the first requirement for an exemplary user experience is to meet the exact needs of the customer without fuss or bother. So basically, to provide an exemplary user experience, you just need to know what your customer needs. Okay, even those that your customer doesn't know that he needs. Okay, we can argue that's why the iPad was so successful. No one knew that they needed a tablet, but yeah, look at the success. Um, so after meeting customer needs comes simplicity and elegance that those products produce, so that here we have joy. But once again, not joy to use, but also joy to own. And ownership of the product is once again really highlighted here as part of a user experience, of a good user experience. Um, so meeting the exact needs is echoed here in this fourth bullet. So true user experience goes far beyond giving customers what they say they want. It's also about giving them what they don't know they want. Okay. And for you to be able to provide this high quality user experience, there must be a seamless merging of the services that multiple disciplines provide. So it's not, once again, it's not just about any specific type of design. It's much more than that. It's about everything that's required to build a successful product. Of course, from the perspective of the end user, we can really sum it up as this is the whole experience you have with a thing, okay, whatever the thing is. So we'll be looking at some models of user experience in the next week. But what I'm just going to introduce you to some perspectives of what influences the user experience, because most of the times, well, I would say we really just focus on that usage part in this diagram. But user experiences starts much earlier. Okay, starts when you become aware of a product or a service, software, whatever it is. Okay, so perhaps you have this need for something and you search for a product that can meet that need, and that's when you become aware. Okay, or because it might just pop up on an announcement that you saw while you were browsing the web or watching TV or something. That's where it starts, when you become aware that something exists. And if that's something that meets that one of your needs, then you will need to choose. You probably don't just buy the first thing that you find, that you become aware. You analyze competition. You look for reviews from other persons. You look for different prices for different products, of course. So you make a choice. And after that, it's also part of your user experience, the way that you obtain that product. Okay. It could be just a simple download, but if it's too hard to find the download link on a website, it, it, your user experience starts going down the drain. Okay, it depends on what you are required to do to get your hands on the product, but that's also impactful on your user experience. Then there's the first impression, the first time that you use something. Okay, it's more important than your regular usage of it. So if it's a physical product, it's about the experiences of unboxing it. If it's a digital product, it's about the experiences of installing it. Okay, setting everything that needs to be set up. All this will make you more predisposed or less predisposed to enjoy that product in the future while you're using it. Then, while you're using it, unless you're very lucky, you will have problems with using your product. So that's also an important part of user experience. Is it easy to solve the problems? Do you have a community that could support you in solving it? All of that contributes to improve the user experience of a product. And then even at the end of the cycle, when you stop using the product, it can also contribute to your user experience. Is it easy to upgrade? Is it easy to uninstall? If it's a physical product, can it be recycled? If that's important to you, and I hope it is. So all of this contributes to improve or make it worse. It depends on how the product fares on all these phases. And what you as a product designer gain from this is if you provide a good experience for your users or for your customers, they become loyal to you. Okay, and a loyal user will have a much higher probability of reusing your product or using other products that you offer. Okay, so from a business perspective, this is also important. Um, so, how can we model this into something that then we can use to base our design decisions on? So different authors have done this in different ways. This model is from the authors of the recommended book for this course. So they have these 4 elements of user experience. The first 3 are well, we've talked about them before. Usability, also how useful it is to you, the emotional impact. How do you feel? How satisfied are you by, or does this product make you? But also, they introduce this long-term personal relationship with the product. So, how meaningful does that product become to you after you've used it for a while? Other perspectives, so this is another way to look at the elements that compose the user experience. Interestingly enough, it's also 4 elements of user experience. It's basically the same, perhaps represented differently or even grouped differently. So it's about usability, it's about how valuable a product is, how easy it is for you to get your hands on that product and start using it, and how desirable it is for you to use it. So usability, it's that the traditional part, so how easy it is to learn. It's that the part that uh, this is an example that I tend to like. When we moved, and this relates to the dancing bears, to the slide that I presented after the dancing bears, when we moved from mobile phones with keyboards to mobile phones with just a touch screen. One of the problems that people faced was, okay, this is great when I want to call someone that I have on my contact list. Okay, I access the contact list, I touch the name of the person that I want to call, and there we go. But when I want to call a number instead of a person, so it was a problem for a lot of people to find the keyboard to enter the number. Okay, and this is a usability problem. How easy it is for me to use this if I can't find the keyboard to make a call, to call a phone number. This is the kind of usability problems that needs to be tackled. Of course, then if we look at the value here representing how aligned is the product with what my user needs are, and there it is, my explicit user needs and my implicit user needs, the ones that I don't even know that I have. But if you look at, once again, mobile phones, nowadays, mobile phones do a lot more than phone calls. Okay, we could even say, well, they even do phone calls because we use mobile phones for a lot of stuff that does not involve phone calls. And if you go back 20 years ago, you didn't knew that you needed that kind of features on a mobile phone. Now you can't live without them. Also, adaptability. So here we're looking at 2 dimensions, I would say. The one's how easy it is for a user to access a product. So if it's too expensive, perhaps the user can't buy it. If the download link is hidden somewhere, perhaps I'm not able to get to it. So how easy it is for me to have access to a product. But this also covers the part about credibility. Is that brand credible enough, or have I heard about this product having installing some malware on my system? So if that's the case, probably I don't want to adopt this kind of product. And then the last I mentioned, it's how desirable it is. Okay, uh, here more of a perspective of, okay, after I started using this product, how much do I want to go back to using it? And does it really engage me to keep using it, to go back to it? Okay, so different from adoptability. I mean, that's in the perspective. So before I have the product, desirability more of the perspective. After I have the project, do I want to keep using it? Okay, if we take desirability out of the equation, probably no one would play a game. Okay, because we could argue that a game would not bring value to you, but it's desirable, it's engaging. You want to have fun playing the game, so you keep playing. Okay. And this kind of models allows us to do stuff like this. So to look at products and classify them according to these dimensions. And if you look at the game, the example of the game here on the top right, not all games have such a low value for the users. Of course, there are games that allow you, that assist you in learning stuff. So these are much more higher valued games. But if you look at a game just to have fun, then that's something that has probably a low value. It's not really meeting one of your needs, but you want your game to have a high desirability value. That's how you keep your users. They want to keep, you want to build a game that they want to keep going back to. Um, you want it to make it easy to access the game. So the adaptability, it's also a high value, but usability, it's not as important for a game. Uh, we can even think of games that require a low usability to make it harder to play, which would increase their desirability because it's a challenging factor. Okay, so all of these dimensions are at play here. If you look at the social network, for instance, it's kind of like a game, but not that extreme. You also want to have high desirability and high adaptability. So you want to make it easy for people to get into the social network and to remain there. But social networks really don't provide such a high value as, for instance, an enterprise software. Okay, and social networks also don't need to rely on a high usability because you don't really want to, or it's not that important to be productive on a social network. Okay, while on an enterprise software, usability it's more important because you want people to be productive there. Of course, uh, you don't really need to consider about desirability. It's an enterprise software example. Your employees have to use it. Even if it's not desirable, that's what they have to use, so they don't get a choice. But it really needs to provide value. Okay. And of course, on an e-commerce, an e-commerce site, it's something that all of this is perhaps equally important. If you want to make money out of an e-commerce site, you have to provide value to your customers. Uh, they have to be able to easily get into your website, and hopefully you want them to keep coming back so that you can keep making money. And they don't, in no way you want them uh, to fight with the user interface because that would make it tougher, more hard for them to complete their sales. So usability is also uh, also important. Okay, hooray! We have one comment from Paulo on chat. And another one from Vasco. Yeah, great. Uh, so Paulo is asking, for those of you who are not looking at the chat, uh, he's coming back to the iPad, an expensive product with a very recognizable brand. So would the adaptability be a high or a low value? Um, yeah, you're basically we're looking at uh, two perspectives here for adaptability, right? So the buying, because it's an expensive product, lowers the adaptability. It makes it harder for people to have an iPad because it's an expensive. But the brand perception, it's high for an iPad. Um, so I guess that Apple and looking at this from the perspective of Apple, uh, they they and I think that applies to almost of Apple's products. Uh, they expect that the brand loyalty and the brand awareness compensates the higher price. And if we look at their sales, I guess they're doing a good job. You're not seeing this, but I'm running this on an Apple computer, and I also have an iPhone right beside it. So yeah, I guess it works. Vasco is commenting and saying that desirability is high due to the branding, but adaptability would be dependent on the product itself. So yeah, Vasco, I guess you're reacting to Paul's comment. Yeah, desirability is high to the branding. That's usually what happens with Apple products. Of course, there's also an interesting aspect here. There are a lot of Apple fanboys, but there are a lot of people that dislike Apple just because there are a lot of Apple fanboys. So this, in fact, works both ways. There are, I know, and it's not just one or two persons. I know several persons that don't buy an Apple product because it's Apple. Uh, I know a lot more that don't buy them because they're expensive. But there are some that it's basically based on the brand. So this works both ways, and it's not really crystal clear as this slide makes it look like. Okay, so anyone has any further comments? Okay, so just before we get into the administrative stuff, why is looking at user experience so important? Well, this is kind of an obvious answer because it's expensive not to look at user experience. Okay, user experience is important because of the cost of having a product or a system or a service with bad user experience. Okay, and this cost can take multiple can appear in multiple ways. It can be a sales cost. Okay, if you have a product with worse user experience than your competition, you will sell less because your customers will choose the competition. Uh, it doesn't have to be regarding sales. It can be just the productivity that you get from a product. If it has a bad user experience, it will have a lower productivity. So it will impact what you're able to achieve uh, with the product. And let's take this to an extreme. If you have a medical device or if you have transportation with bad user experience, then it can cause injuries. It can kill people. Okay, so for some domains, this is really critical, and it's really important that products are designed with a good user experience. The good news is that mostly this is no longer a factor, because most of the companies that create products have understood that these are very high costs in not having a product with a good user experience. So this is no longer, most of the times, this is no longer a discussion. It's assumed that you want to have good user experiences. More and more companies are having departments that work on the user experience of the products that they design. Okay. So in this course, we'll be mostly focusing, and you've seen several of the examples so far, and the domain that we will be talking about most is going to be the internet, both the web and mobile. Access to the internet, more web than mobile, I admit up front, but most of the stuff that you learn for the web, it's also applicable to mobile design. Okay, and user experience on the web, it's very, very important because of an intrinsic characteristic of the web. It's that the web is basically ever evolving. It's continuously changing. There's a lot of competitive pressure on the web. It's it's really hard to be an Amazon, okay? And there are a lot of competition for your product there. If you have a website that does A, it's probably going to pop up another website that does the same that you do, and at a very fast pace. And this, it's not only the competition, but also the technology that supports the web keeps evolving really quickly, and there's a pressure on you to use the last technology, that very last framework that appeared, and you want to be always on the cutting edge of technology. And so we are 20 years ahead of this very good point that Tsikitris made 20 years ago. So in the web, either you're fast or you are irrelevant. And it's very much true, probably even truer nowadays. Okay. I'm just seeing that we have here another comment from Eduardo. So in what cases is a bad design, a bad user experience desirable? Okay, for instance, in the physical world, bench gardens that are made so people don't sleep on them, or metro benches that have an uncomfortable angle so that people don't sit there for too long. Okay, what about the digital world? Is there any prominent cases where a bad user experience is desirable on a business service standpoint? It's a great question. Okay, and some good examples of physical products. Okay, and as an interesting answer to that, the way to close skip ads. Okay, well, I would say that ads that tend to provide a bad user experience. Okay, so we don't want ads, but I'm not sure if this is what Anna meant, but related to ads, there's probably something that I wouldn't, I would call it a bad user experience from a service standpoint. If you have a website and you want people to go to your website because that's how you get money from the ads that you serve on your website, you don't want people to go there with ad blockers. Okay, because if they have ad blockers, you won't get your money from the web, from the ads, from the advertisements that people are not seeing because they have ad blockers. So you might provide a bad user experience to the users that have an ad blocker turned on. So if you are a newspaper, perhaps you don't let them see the news until they turn off their ad blockers. Okay, so you are providing a bad user experience in order for your users to stop using an ad blocker. Okay, that's a possible example of you from a service perspective wanting to provide a bad user experience. But it's I don't think it's common to want to do that. It's probably more easy to find examples of physical objects that do that, as you said. Yeah, but that's a great point. Yeah. Okay, so coming back here to this evolution of the web, every year I collect some usage number of the web so that it's easier for us to get an idea of what we're talking about. Okay, so websites, interestingly enough, they've been decreasing for the last 4 years. Okay, don't ask me why. I have no idea why websites are decreasing, but that's the fact. From the last 4 years, they're decreasing. Probably it's a result of more people moving to mobile applications and dropping websites, but I haven't seen anything that justifies it. Still, they have been decreasing, but we're talking about more than 1,000 million websites. Okay, so this is a lot of websites. That's a lot of competition. That's a lot of pressure. Web users, on the other hand, don't stop to grow. Yeah, Paul also saying perhaps less blogs, more tweeting, Instagram, social media. Yeah, perhaps that's one of the things that social media creates. Yeah, it offers people a way to voice their opinions, and they don't need to have their personal blog. Yeah, that might have also contributed, definitely. So, but as I was saying, users, yeah, they still increase. They tend to increase by 0.3. That's US billions. Okay, so thousands of millions, not millions of millions, as we use. So, but it's basically 300 million more users per year for the last 4 or 5 years. So more than half of the world population uses the web. Okay, and approximately half of the world population has an email account. So there's 4 billion email users, and there's a lot of email making the rounds, so more than 300 billion emails per day. And of course, a large percentage of that is spam, which is a shame, but we've learned to live with that. Talking about social media, there are currently more than 2,600 million active users on Facebook. It's still the largest social network service. YouTube, it's close by, okay, and WhatsApp has currently a very approximate number of users of YouTube, so 2,000 million active users on YouTube, also 2,000 million active users on WhatsApp. Okay, Twitter, it's a very smaller number. We have 326 million active users on Twitter. Okay, so some years ago, Twitter would be the second, third, or fourth social network. Now it's not even on the top 10, I guess. But people are still very active on Twitter. So the 326 million, on average, more than one tweet per Twitter user per day. Okay, so 500 million tweets per day. That's a lot of tweets. It's also interesting to understand the impact that video has. Of course, on YouTube, we're all watching videos, so 5 billion video views per day. But it's interesting that Facebook has more. They have 8 there's 8 billion video views per day on Facebook. That's an incredible amount of traffic every day uh, on the internet. Okay, and looking at mobile, which is more and more uh, relevant, it's almost one mobile subscription per person on the planet. Okay, it's very close to 8 billion mobile subscriptions. So it's of course there's more than one. Uh, a lot of us have more than one mobile subscription, so that doesn't mean that everyone on the planet has a mobile subscription, but on average, it's basically that's the scenario. And of those almost 8 billion mobile subscriptions, it's interesting to see that 6 billion are mobile broadband subscriptions. Okay, this is quite um, uh, it's when I learned about this growing uh, uh, trend of mobile broadband subscriptions increasing, I was quite amazed at how far mobile broadband has reached already. And this huge amount of mobile devices and subscriptions means that already more than half of the global internet traffic it's originated from mobile devices. Okay, and from and that the mobile data traffic, more than half, so close to 60%, it's video. So we are, as a species, consuming a lot of video. Okay, and of course, there's this increasing amount, extraordinary amount of information on the internet, and at the same time, our ability to consume that information is decreasing. Okay, a lot of studies have been showing that our ability to focus our attention is decreasing. Okay, I don't even have recent studies here, so this is a problem that's been going from for a long while already. So this it's part of was taken from a news piece from the BBC almost 20 years ago, so 2002. So the addictive nature of web browsing can leave you with an attention span of 9 seconds, the same as a goldfish. Okay, and I think we all recognize ourselves a bit in there, and probably a lot of people that we know. Um, Twitter, interestingly, has increased the amount of information that they allow per tweet. So until some years ago, it was only 140 characters per tweet. Now it's 280. They still keep the 140 seconds rule on audio or video content on your tweets. There was also an experiment for video content. It was called the 12 seconds TV. It would only allow video clips of 12 seconds. This has disappeared some time ago, 10 years ago. But also in 2008, already Nielsen was writing about this and just saying the more words you add to a web page, the more people will skim your content. So if you want people to pay attention to your content, really you need to have less content in there, okay? Because yeah, we just very easily lose our focus, and that's the challenging part. There are more and more information where we can uh, that we can pay attention to, and it's challenging to pay attention. So also one of the things that's important from a user experience perspective is uh, to give you some means that hopefully will allow you to attract and to retain the users that you have attract. So this is a very important question nowadays. How do you attract and retain users to your product, to your website, to your mobile app? Okay. And of course, you probably are aware of some of the ways that companies already do that. So they keep sending you notifications just to keep you busy on their products and not allow you to try out other stuff. Um, okay, so any questions, any comments before we move on to the administrative stuff? Okay, so guess not. So let's wrap this up. Okay, so as you certainly are aware of, this is about user experience. As I've made you aware of in the introduction to this class, this will also be about accessibility, because I can't think of user experience without thinking about of accessibility. It doesn't make sense to design a great user experience to just a small set of the population if I can design it to everyone. Okay, of course there are special instances where you have a very well defined target population, and then yeah, in those instances you need to focus on that population. You don't need to consider everyone, but the more population you consider, the better your product will be. Okay, and we will be looking at user experience and accessibility from these four different dimensions. We'll be looking at usage research, so understand your users. We'll be looking at the UX design. We'll be looking at prototyping so that you can try your designs before committing, and you will be looking at techniques for UX and accessibility evaluation. Okay. Uh, Typically, these are the stages of a design framework, and that's what we will be uh, talking about in the next class next week. Some UX frameworks, and we will see how these stages can blend with one another uh, to to create frameworks that then practitioners can follow when they're working on their products. Okay. Uh, Most of you already have the basics for this. Okay. So you should have learned something before about human computer interaction. If you have your first cycle course here at the Faculty of Sciences, you have had one topic on I, uh, IPM, IPM, interação pessoa-máquina, Human Machine Interaction, or interação com computadores. So you've already had this introduction. You already had the course on product or system design. Once again, if you came from one of our first cycle courses, you've had análise e desenho de sistemas de informação. If you came from the other course, you had concepção de produto. So here you also have the basis, and you should have had some basics also on project management. So if you came from one of the courses we've probably with me, you've talked about this in Projeto de Sistemas de Informação. If you came from the other of our first cycle courses, you've talked about this in Planeamento e Gestão de Projetos. So these are the basics that you should have for successfully completing this user experience course. For those of you that have different backgrounds, I will provide some background materials that you can skim, and will make it easy for you then to follow the remainder of the materials. Okay. Once again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt at any time. So the literature that's recommended, the main book we're following is the UX book, Agile UX Design for a Quality User Experience. I also recommend, if you have the possibility, to have a look at Don't Make Me Think, a common sense approach to web usability. It's more than 10 years old, but it's a great book about usability and about user experience and about people, basically. So it's a great read, and it's not it's a small book, so it's something that if you can get your hands on, I thoroughly recommend. Okay. The other books, The Elements of User Experience from Jesse James Garrett, it's a different framework from the one that we have in the UX book. And also if you want to know more about information architecture, which is a big part of user experience, that's the Information Architecture Bible, I would say, the Morville and Rosenfeld book on information architecture for the World Wide Web. So these are my recommendations. Of course, there are a lot more books on user experience, and it would be impossible to list them all here. Okay, so how will we communicate? And this is the part that I address Microsoft Teams. I'm really fed up with Moodle. I can't stand Moodle anymore. Moodle provides a really bad user experience. Given the opportunity to change for another platform, I took it. And at this point, I'm probably regretting that decision, but I hope that in a couple of weeks I will change my mind. Okay, so Microsoft Teams has a very nice product, Teams for Education. It allows you to do most of what one can do with Moodle, but better. And so I wanted to start using Teams for this course, okay? And Teams would be used for general announcements, for providing fora where we could all talk to another. Okay, Teams is organized in channels, so there's a general forum where everyone can exchange posts. It's kind of a chat / social network. Then there will be channels for the different components of the course where we would have specific conversations. The assignments would be made available in Teams and in the same way that they are in Moodle, graded with specific feedback for each one of you. There are class notebooks where you can do your stuff and I can see them, you can see them and no one else can see them. So it's a great way to share your work or your questions with me. And of course, it allows me to share with you all the slides for the classes and the videos and everything else that we are going to use, okay? The problem is that apparently the guys from the IT department here don't know what they're doing. Probably shouldn't say this, but that's what it looks like because they have created a team that's not a class team. So I don't have access to any of these important features that Teams for Educations makes available. And I just have a regular Teams where without even a calendar, so that I wasn't able to schedule this meeting on Microsoft Teams, and we are doing this on Zoom. So I will now spend the rest of this week, and hopefully by the end of the week, they have fixed the problem and we can start using Teams regularly. Of course, Phoenix is the official web page for the course in the faculty. Sorry, just getting ahead of myself. Grading rules are already posted on Phoenix, the bibliography, the schedule, class details there already. You can find them there. Some of this information, it's only available if you are authenticated, so you have to sign in before seeing some of this information, but that's the only requirement, okay? So I will keep you posted on the progress of moving to Teams. I will send you emails, but hopefully we can solve this and start using it as soon as possible. Okay, so what we'll be doing, mostly you will be doing in this class, okay? You will be required to read before classes, okay, especially for those classes where you have to do some presentations, okay. That's not all of the classes, but it's I think it's a way to improve your learning experience, is to make sure that you also experience what it is to be on the other side. So one of the things that you will have to do as part of this class, you will be graded on it. I will make available some topics for presentations. Everyone will have to pick one topic and give a presentation about it, okay? After each of these presentations, the whole class is supposed to take part in a discussion, okay? And you will also be graded for this, for your participation in the discussions. So it's a great way to promote talking about these topics, and you will become a mini expert on a specific topic, which is also something good that you can take. Of course, you are free to read about the other topics so that you do a better job in preparing for discussing it with your colleagues, and then you will be better graded. So it's a win-win situation. You will also have to do some practical work. You will have to create a portfolio, okay, where you will start by doing an evaluation of a product. Okay, we'll talk about in more detail about this next week, but I will just in the next few slides tell you about what you will be working on. So you will have to evaluate a product, and based on your findings, you will have to redesign that product and prototype part of the product. Definitely, I'm not asking you to redesign the full product. That would be too much for 6 months work. And you don't have 6 months during the semester to do this. Okay, so you probably now know already almost everything that you need to know about what you'll be graded on. So there are 4 components in your final grade, okay? The first one in this slide is the essay. You will be required to write an essay with, I have 6 pages there, but that's the maximum. You have to write no more than 6 pages about one of the topics that I will provide for you to choose later on. Okay, and this is something that usually most of you do after the classes and the exams start, because the due date, it's just the last day before the second period of exams start. Okay, and pay attention, this accounts for 35% of your final grade. Okay, then what I was talking about, class participation. So you will be required to prepare and give one presentation on a topic that you will choose from a list. Okay, these are going to be different lists. There's a list for essays, there's a list for presentations. There might be some overlap between the lists, but they are different lists. For the presentations, each student will have a different topic. So there will be, I don't know, 40 topics, because you're already around 40. While for the essays, there's going to be a lot less, between 5 or 10 topics. So there will be people writing about the same topic, definitely. But for the presentations, as I said, each one of you will have to give a presentation. This accounts for 15% of your final grade. And after each presentation, there we will have some time. There's an important question from João, which is, can I present in Portuguese? If you feel that presenting in English would be would hurt your grade, yeah, I would allow you to present in Portuguese. Probably I would prefer if at least your slides were in English, because that still gives an opportunity for your colleagues that don't speak Portuguese to take part in the discussion. Okay, because by presenting in Portuguese, you are limiting the ability of your colleagues to participate in the follow-up discussion. So you are limiting the ability of they reaching top grade on the discussion component of grading. Okay, so preferably all presentations will be in English. If you feel that that's going to be really detrimental to your presentation, you can do it in Portuguese. So as I was saying, presentations will be followed by 5-10 minutes for a discussion. I will be grading your interventions in the discussion, not specifically the presenter interventions, so everyone else's participation in the discussion, okay? And I will be adding your interventions, and at the end, after all presentations, the person that's at the top of the list in the interventions over all discussions will get a 20 in this component. The person that's at the bottom of the list with at least one intervention will get a 10, okay? And everyone else is distributed in that scale between 10 to 20. Those of you who have 0 interventions will get a 0. So by not taking part in any discussion, you are basically waiving 3 values, because that's what 15% of 20. So you are saying that your top grade for this course is 17 instead of 20. Okay, but I will remember you all of this when we get closer to the presentations. So presentations plus discussion, that's 30% of your grade. And then finally, there's a group project that accounts for the remaining 35% of your grades. Okay, I'll be talking about the group project in the next slide, but just to make sure that you understand this, there are 5 deliverables there. So in about a month, there's your first deliverable, and then 3 weeks later, you get the second deliverable, and then you have a deliverable every 2 weeks. Okay, so you need really to get on with the rhythm for this project. It is a group project. All the other components are individual. This is the only group work that you'll be doing. I don't have any requirements about the number of elements on the group. Okay, so if you feel that you work very well with just one of your colleagues, you can have a 2-person group. If you feel that you work well with half a dozen, you can have a 6-people group, a 7-people group. That's okay. Of course, I will not judge the work of a group of 2 in the same way that I judge the work of a group of 5 or 6 or 4, whatever. Okay, the amount of work should be proportional to the number of elements on the group. Okay, so you ideally at the end, all of you have worked more or less the same. Okay, at least if you have the same quality, then you will have a comparable grade at the end. So what will be the group project that you will be working on? Basically, what I want you to do is to redesign our school's website. And this time, I wanted to have a brilliant user experience on your redesign, because I don't have a brilliant user experience on the current website of Ciencias. Okay, probably you don't have one also. Most of you are already very aware of the website. So this will be your project for this year. Interestingly enough, and if this contributes to increase your motivation, uh, your work might very well be used in a real redesign of the website. Okay, it's something that the school's director it's interested in, it's invested in. They want to improve our school's website. They came to me for that, and I said, okay, with everything else that's going on, I don't think I will be able to do this in a short period. But it does seems like a great project for the user experience course. So this is my challenge to you, and I will definitely be I will be using uh, your great ideas and merging them into what will then become a proposal for a redesign of Ciencia's website. Okay, so hopefully uh, this also works as motivation for you. Okay, so what I'm expecting you to do. So the first deliverable, it's due in about a month. What I want you to include in, so basically you'll be putting all these deliverables into your portfolio. What I want there by that time is a set of personas and user stories. We'll be talking a bit more about this in the coming weeks, but you should already have an idea what those are. In parallel, given the breadth and depth of the website, it's a big one. In parallel, it's a good thing that you start doing an evaluation of this website, okay? Because by the beginning of November, you have to turn in an evaluation report, okay? So we're talking about evaluating the usability of the website. You can do heuristic evaluations, you can do user evaluations, you can do whatever you want. We'll be talking about user experience evaluation. So we'll also, before November, we'll have covered this in classes. We'll be talking about also accessibility evaluation. So I expect all these components to take part of your evaluation report. Okay, and from here on, you start redesigning the website. So you have this every 2 weeks, you have another deliverable. So the first one, the redesigned information architecture, some storyboards and mood boards. We'll be getting to what that is. By the end of November, some wireframes and a style guide for the website. And by the end of the semester, that's the last week of the semester, you have some high fidelity mock-ups or high fidelity prototypes, what's in the industry, it's called design comps. Okay, so while I expect a near complete redesign of the information architecture, I definitely do not expect you to create wireframes or design comps for the full website. Okay, especially design comps that would be impossible to do in a fortnight. So you just select parts of the website. It's likely that different groups will pick different parts. So for that, then you will have just a set of wireframes and one or two design comps, because we're talking about high fidelity here. So one design comp takes much more effort than a wireframe. Okay, so this is in general what's your group project. So you start with an evaluation, and then based on your evaluation, you do a redesign. Okay, and of course I will be grading your portfolios based on the complexity of your work, on the originality of your redesign, and the rigor of your evaluation. Okay. Any questions? Okay, I guess you will have some time to think about this until next week. Oh yeah, that's a very good question from Carolina. Um, how will you form the groups without support from uh, Microsoft Teams, Moodle, or whatever? Unfortunately, I have tried to come up with a good solution for that. Unfortunately, I haven't. What I can try to do is make sure that we have teams available still this week as soon as possible. And after you have teams, then it will create a channel that you can use to find elements for your groups. Of course, those of you that already know each other and that you know that you want to work with someone else, you can already start creating and working. And then when we have Microsoft Teams, then that will be formal. It will become formal, the constitution of the group. But so far, unfortunately, I do not have not a good, not a bad answer for that. All I can do is promise that I will try to get Microsoft Teams up and running as soon as possible. Any more questions from anyone? Okay, so this is it for today. Okay, the next week, as I've said, we'll be talking about different UX frameworks and different UX processes. As agile software development, it's basically one of the major software development movements nowadays. We'll also start talking about how does user experience practices fit in with a very fast pace, or with the very fast pace of the agile software development processes. We'll be coming back to this topic later on the semester, but I want to just to give you an idea of how they can be merged. And for the practical class, we'll be going back to the project, talking about a bit more about the project. I will introduce to you some resources that you can use to assist you in your evaluation of at least the website's information architecture, because as I told you, the schools director is committed to this, and there has already been some work done, and I will share that with you, and you can use that also to inspire or to ground your own evaluation. Okay, and this is it. If anyone still has any question, I can take it. If not, I'll definitely talk to you in a week, and in the meantime, I will keep you posted about the progresses that I'm making with Microsoft Teams and trying to get it ready for all of us to use. Okay, so great talking to you. Next week, unless there's any further announcement from me, both theoretical and the practical classes will happen in a mixed mode. So part of you can attend the class at the school, and also the class will be broadcast for those of you who are not there. Okay, great meeting you. This took a bit longer than I estimated, but it's been great meeting you. Hopefully I'll get to see more faces next week and talk to you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. See you next week. Bye-bye.
See you.